Hello and welcome to another episode of Chuchu as a Ranker. On this episode we're going to be continuing our Albums of the Year list. This time it's 2005, and 2005, a pretty strong year. Whilst not quite as good as 2002 or 2004, I did have to make some hard cuts on this list. So without further ado, let's be complete rankers and rank up a storm. These are my personal top 10 albums of 2005. So we're going to be kicking off this list with Pushing the Senses by Feeder, which was the band's fifth album, and on this LP the band are attempting to, and mostly succeeding at, joining the miserablest mainstream movement, aligning themselves with bands like Travis, Coldplay, Keane, Snow Patrol, etc. It was a bit of a controversial move at the time, which alienated a good portion of their early fan base, but shouldn't have been so much of a surprise as the band had already been making moves towards that sound on their previous record, Comfort in Sound. Mercifully, the band do retain at least some semblance of their earlier heaviness, even if the teeth have been completely filed off, because tracks like Bitter Glass, Pushing the Senses and Pilgrim Soul do rock out harder than those other mainstream acts that I mentioned previously. Other highlights include the opening anthemic ballad, Feeling a Moment, with its soaring vocal woo, the tender piano of Well Tender, and the gentle, resigned nature of Frequency and Pain on Pain. So yeah, this is just a solid album of misery as stadium rock, and saw the band at the peak of their chart powers, and also a great curtain jerker for this list. Next up, we have the sophomore album by Röyksopp entitled The Understanding. On this record, the band are moving away from the more atmospheric textures of their debut into more direct synth-pop territory. Well, I say synth-pop, but this record is incredibly dark, cold and sad, as Röyksopp is often wont to be, which is why I like them so much. It's basically dance music for the manically depressed. So expect more gothic soundscapes akin to Depeche Mode, rather than more pop-orientated genre examples such as Pet Shop Boys, Air or Daft Punk. And to that end, this album has just a great atmosphere. It feels like being dropped off on an iceberg in the dead of night with nothing but the northern lights as company. Highlights include the building classical piano opener Triumphant, the dark-hued dance rock lead single Only This Moment, the existential dread of What Else Is There, the twin breakup anthems of 49% and Beautiful Day Without You, and the thumping electronic buzz of Circuit Breaker. So yeah, this is just a great second LP from Röyksopp, and if you actually asked me back in 2005 what was my album of the year, this would have definitely been the answer. But you know, it slipped down the list somewhat as Röyksopp simply got better and better as their career progressed, and when I want to listen to Röyksopp, this is rarely the record I pick, but it's still great, and there was no way that this wasn't going to make the list. Next up, we have some beautiful folk and alt country with I'm Wide Awake, It's Morning by Bright Eyes, which was the band's sixth album and one of two records by this band from 2005. This is definitely the better of the two though, and is widely regarded to be the band's masterpiece. And if you are looking for this year's critical darling, then this is it right here, as critics generally fall over themselves to heap praise on this thing. And with good reason. The record is universally pleasant, full of emotively miserable lyrics and beautiful acoustic balladry. There are also some more layered tracks, such as the alt country stomper Another Travelling Song and the anthemic Poison Oak, but it's mostly stripped back Bob Dylan aping affair, with other highlights including the Neutral Milk Hotel-esque At the Bottom of Everything, the catchy folk glide of First Day of My Life, and the cool stuttering acoustic stylings of Train Underwater. So yeah, this is a great record and probably begs the question as to why it's not top 5. Well, there's a kind of warbling quality to Conor Oberst's voice which slightly irks me, plus it's the hair and the image combining with the lyrics that just doesn't quite connect with me on a personal level. And there's just always this kind of like slight air of emo douchebaggery about Bright Eyes, which I can never quite shake. But objectively speaking though, this is a great album and an easy placing on this list. While the world
it's for an explosion.
Talking about douchebaggery, Maximo Park are up next with their debut album A Certain Trigger. Frontman Paul Smith has an immediate kind of douche atmosphere about him, with Enemy dubbing him the twat in the hat, if memory serves. I guess that's what happens when you jump from making overpriced wallets into being the frontman of an angular jerking rock band. But yeah, piss taking aside, Maximo Park are actually pretty unique and have a really off-kilter sound. As I said, angular, jerking, whiplash fast punk tunes are order of the day here, categorized by Paul Smith's extremely personal and emotive lyrics. He's actually a really good lyricist and opens up many of his wounds for you to peer into. His lyrical performance on this is actually pretty damn compelling. Highlights include the Hell for Leather lead single, Apply Some Pressure, you lose some pressure, apply some pressure. The rocking graffiti, the bonkers Now I'm All Over the Shop, the gorgeous shoegazy Acrobat with its spoken word verses, and my personal favourite off of this, the beautiful lyrics and catchy sing-along nature of The Coast Is Always Changing. So yeah, this is just a great debut from Maximo Park. Coming in next is Open Season, which was the second album from British Sea Power. On this record, the band are reining in their kind of obtuse weirdness a bit, and this is easily one of the more direct pop records in their discography. There's definitely overtones of Echo and the Bunnymen and the Smiths rolling in off this LP, which, suits me fine because I love those bands. Everything on this is melodic and catchy, and the track listing is incredibly consistent. Highlights include the none more Echo and the Bunnymen-esque opener, It Ended on an Oily Stage, the insidiously catchy Be Gone, the atmospheric Like a Honeycomb, the gorgeous folk of North Hanging Rock, I absolutely fucking love that track, the Smiths aping Go to Sleep and Victorian Ice, and the epic building close of True Adventures. And on a personal level, this is an album that's very meaningful for me because it was actually the last record I bought before I moved away from my home country of England to permanently live in Japan. And I remember in those closing stages just saying goodbye to my family. I was just listening to this record and it just kind of soaked up that kind of atmosphere and sadness for me. So albums are always at their best when you have a personal connection with them, and I have a lot of personal connection with this particular record. But aside from that, this is just a great album of indie rock from start to finish. Just great stuff from British Sea Power here. So we're going to be kicking off the top 5 with Silent Alarm by Block Party, which was the band's debut album. Yeah, and this album takes the whole Radiohead OK Computer sound and feeds it through Interpol's atmospherics, and then adds a jerking angular thrust to it, as well as pinches of Blur's London catchiness. And yeah, it proved to be a potent mix which kind of defined the sound of British indie for a while. This became pretty influential, and you can just hear ripples from this record all throughout the next decade. It's also excellent, with plenty of highlights to stop you in your tracks. Opener Like Eating Glass is straight in there with that trademark sound and sets out the stall nicely. Stuttering singles Helicopter and Banquet show Block Party's knack for a good dance beat. Blue Light, This Modern Love and Compliments show off the more atmospheric side of the band. I particularly love This Modern Love with its lyric, "You told me you wanted to eat up my sadness." Just great lyric that. The Interpol aping The Pioneers is really cool, and album highlight So Here We Are is a Radiohead-esque mega ballad. So yeah, this is a pretty damn essential release from Block Party. Next up, we have Siberia by Echo and the Bunnymen, which is easily the band's best reunion album, at least in my opinion, and also their last true stab of greatness, at least at this time. One of the praises you can level at Echo and the Bunnymen is that they never made the same album twice. They were always moving forward, never looking back, but it's on this record where they finally stop, glance back and take stock, because this LP is basically Echo and the Bunnymen play you the hits, but in a very good way. The track listing on this is pretty much flawless, and the production has a really cool retro feeling to it. It sounds really bass heavy and like it was actually recorded in the 70s, so I'm a big fan of that. Yeah, and there are just tons of highlights on this too, from the catchy opening single Stormy Weather, through the giant major chorded ballads All Because of You Days, In the Margins and Everything Kills You, to the Will Sergeant guitar showcase of Parthenon Drive. It's just amazing song after amazing song, finally culminating with a duo of closers, the roaring rocker Scissors in the Sand, and the emotionally broken piano ballad What If I Am. So yeah, this might be a late period record, but it's just as vital as any of their classics. Great stuff from Echo and the Bunnymen here. Coming in third place and taking home the bronze medal, we have Warning's Promises, which was the fourth album by Idlewild. Yeah, and on this record, the band are moving away from the heavier punk of their earlier records into a more folk rock orientated direction, further aligning their sound with bands like REM and Teenage Fanclub. The change was a very divisive one amongst the band's fan base, and at the time I myself wasn't overly keen on the direction, but hey, I'm an idiot and I was so very wrong about that, because yeah, this album is absolutely fantastic. There's tons of variety, and Roddy Womble's lyrics are more emotionally astute than ever before. The track listing is consistent and the record is just stuffed full of unforgettable tunes. I Want a Warning and Too Long Awake have shoegaze soundscapes to them. I Understand It and Not Just Sometimes But Always double down on the folk rock vibe. Opening single Love Steals Us From Loneliness retains just a little bit of the band's guitar violence, and the ghostly piano and skyscraping choruses of El Capitan make this an absolutely unmissable album. Amazing stuff and an easy placing on this list. Silver medal time, and the silver medal is going to go to Road to Ruin by Supergrass, which was the band's fifth album. And yeah, at the time of recording, the band had been going through some really rough times. The Coombs boy's mother had sadly passed away, and the drummer had been splashed all around in the tabloids for partying just a little bit too hard, all of which led to the band to just not want to make upbeat pop songs like they did previously. So this album has a more kind of spacious, melancholic, almost jazz rock vibe to it. First thing to note is the amazing production. It just sounds like a 70s album. It's rich and warm and full. I absolutely love the sound of this record. And then there's the brevity. 9 songs, 35 minutes, about what a 70s record should be. Maybe Supergrass have been time traveling, I don't know. But yeah, there's not a single dead second of air on this. It's just absolutely perfect. It's melancholic, but it's also just fucking badass. Like, the build up and explosion of Roxy is awesome. The rocking catchiness of Sad Girl is great. Coffee in the Pot is a great instrumental that lightens the mood of the album a bit. The single St. Petersburg is so cool with its pristine jazz rock stylings, and the closing duo of Losi and Finn end the album with a restrained emotional flourish. And yeah, so for me, this is easily Supergrass's best album. I absolutely love it, and that artwork, pretty damn cool. So here we are at the top of the mountain, and the gold medal for 2005, which should probably be split amongst the top 4, to be honest, as I really flip-flopped between them which one was going to be top, is ultimately going to go to The Back Room, which was the debut album by Editors. Yeah, and it's here that you start to understand the seismic impact that Interpol's Turn on the Bright Lights had. That record kickstarted a tsunami that swept in bands like White Lies, Cut City and I Like Trains, but Editors were the leaders and also most successful of that movement. And yeah, Editors do differ a bit from Interpol though, as they're less concerned with cracklingly cool atmospherics and more concerned with just brute force post-punk, leaning closer to Joy Division than Interpol do. Tracks like Munich and Bullets are just full of youthful rage and snarling guitars. Blood has some high energy and awesome 80s synths on it. These songs are also lyrically stripped back and mostly rely on repetitive phrasing, which does limit depth, but also makes them just insanely catchy. You know, these are songs designed to be screamed out into the night while drunk and stuffing your face with a kebab that you know is going to give you the shits the next day. Darker, more atmospheric editions come via the more stripped back Fall and Camera. Tracks like Sparks and Fingers in the Factories have a bouncing, rhythmic quality to them, but my favourite on this is the slow building Open Your Arms. I love the lyrics and empathy of that track, which I always took to be an anti-racist anthem. The refrain of "Open your arms and welcome people to your town," mwah, chef's kiss, it's just a fucking beautiful lyric. So yeah, ultimately this is just a flawless album of rocking, catchy post-punk, and is an absolutely amazing debut album. Sadly, editors as a long-term prospect kind of missed the mark a bit. They were never this good again, but this album is just absolutely pristine. And that's it. That's my 2005 list, but that might not be your list. Please sound off in the comment section and tell me all the classic records that I've missed. Like, share, subscribe and all that other kind of YouTube jazz. Make sure to check back for my 2006 list. Keep yourself healthy, but most importantly, just keep on ranking.